Welcome to Starter Pack. Today we're continuing on our Coding for Entrepreneurs series. Coding for Entrepreneurs is a series for entrepreneurs who want to learn how to code. We go through some very simple principles and start out with some very basic code practices and start writing some code and allow you to help you jumpstart your business. This is important for if you want to be able to manage developers, if you want to learn to write some basic code yourself, or if you're just in general wanting to learn to code overall. These are great tutorials to help you get started, especially with .NET Core, but really with any coding principles. So let's go ahead and dig in and get started today. Welcome to Starter Pack. My name is Spencer Thomason. I am the CEO and co-founder of clean-webpack-plugin as well as many other products. Here are some lessons that I've learned building a successful business while challenging startup norms. My challenge is to push you to rethink startup success. Welcome to Startup Hack. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to work with ASP.NET Core SignalR using TypeScript and Webpack. Now this tutorial is going to demonstrate using Webpack in an ASP.NET Core SignalR web app to bundle and build a client written in TypeScript. Webpack enables developers to bundle and build the client-side resources of a web app. So we're going to create an ASP.NET Core SignalR app. We're going to configure the SignalR server, and then we're going to configure a build pipeline using Webpack. Then we're going to configure the SignalR TypeScript client and enable communication between the client and the server. So that sounds like a mouthful, but let's go ahead and get started on it today. All right, so make sure that you've pulled the latest. So if you're going to get, I've made a couple of changes, but you can hit this and pull it down. So if you've made any changes, it's easy to undo these to make sure that you're getting all the latest. So make sure you're cleared out and do a pull. And so if you've pulled with our previous ones, if not, make sure you go back and look in the channel and start with the very first one. So you can see all the code samples we have in the past here, but pull the first code sample and make sure you have the latest. So now that we have the latest, we're going to right click on the first, on the number 6 here, because that's what we're working on today on this project. And we're going to set this as the startup project. This is an important step because otherwise it's going to run one of these other code samples when we go to hit the play button. So we're going to start with this. Now, one of the first things that I noticed when I pulled this down and tried to build it is if I build just this project, you'll see that it says build succeeded, but you'll also see that there's an error message on the SignalR for this. This is because the node is npm is not installed, and npm is Node Packet Manager. And even if you're not writing with Node, when we're building with TypeScript, we're actually using Node Packet Manager to build these scripts for us. So it's important to install Node Packet Manager. It's something that you'll use very frequently. So let's see here. I have my links all set up here. So with Node, so you'll go to download Node. There's the page that you're looking for to download Node. And you'll click on the Windows installer and download it. And I've already downloaded it here. Let's go to my downloads, and we're going to run Node Package Installer. So now, as we step through here, I'll give you the options that I'm selecting. So obviously accept, because of course I've read every one of those important details. Default location's fine. None of these that you need to change. Definitely want to allow it to install Chocolatey. Chocolatey is a very handy package management system as well for installing Windows apps and things, and so this is a very handy one. So definitely select that and hit install. It's going to pop up, the prompt, and I hit allow, and then pull down these changes. Waiting for that to install here. All right, now it says it's all finished. So it's going to pop up here, and this is going to be where it's going to install Chocolatey as well as some other things and get some things configured for Node. So you want to make sure that you're allowing these to run. These will be important, and so I made sure. And I did get a PowerShell pop up here in case it doesn't get captured by the screen capture. But it's going to run Chocolatey, and I think it's doing some of the installs for around Chocolatey. So I'm going to pause this while it finishes up the installs. So it looks like it's installing Chocolatey. I'm putting it into the path, all important things. So run through all of this. So it's a little upset that Python isn't here for some reason. So it's going to now install Python. So these are all things that are important if you're going to be managing with TypeScript. This is a relatively new laptop for me, and so I haven't installed all of the development tools as of yet. So these are part of the steps that that you want to run through. I would, you're welcome to skip through this if you've already installed it or if you're familiar with it. I'm going to leave this video running through part of it just because I know when I've run other tutorials and they're like, oh yeah, well this installs, and it's nice to be able to see someone else's install run. Of course, every install is going to be slightly different with the different packages you have running and the different operating system and different patches and whatnot. But sometimes it's helpful to be able to see these. So feel free to skip through here if you don't want to watch this install. And I'm going to go ahead and pause this for just a minute. Okay, so that took a little bit longer than I expected to originally run, but once it finished, then we're all set now. So in order to do, there's a couple of things you got to do to get in order to get your Visual Studio system ready to run Node. So the first step is you want to open it up and go to Tools, and then go to Options, and then go to Projects and Solutions. And then from Project Solutions, go to Web Management Package. What you want to do is click on this path and make sure that if it's not the second on the list, that you can see you can move it up and down in the order. Make sure that it's second on the list. So once you do that, you select OK. Now we have our project here, and we're going to go through a couple of the different things. So in configuring the server, the first thing we want to do is, or call out here, is we're going to open up, and I want to show you some of the first important parts. So we're going to make sure that we have added SignalR right here. So we add the SignalR. Then we also want to make sure that we use default files and static files. And the reason that this is the case is because what we're going to do is our source code here we're going to work with is going to start using TypeScript, which is going to look like this, and we'll go through what these mean. And we're going to use the TypeScript in the index, and these will compile down to eventually look like this and like this to see this compiled code. So this is the goal of what we're going to get to, and we're going to get it to compiled so it compiles down to that code. Now, so that's why we're using default and static files. Now we're going to then create a hub just like we did before, and this one's going to look very similar, where it just sends the messages to our hub. And so this previous code broadcast received a message to all connected users once the server receives them. It's unnecessary to have a generic on method to receive all messages. And method named after the message name is enough. So in this example, the TypeScript client sends a message identified as new message, which we see the new message. The C# new message method expects a data sent by the client. A call is then sent to send async on the clients.all. So you can see clients.all. And the received messages are sent to all clients connected to the hub. So we can see that it's using the static build pack, SignalR Webpack, excuse me, and so we're going to add. So we add that to our program.cs. All right, now we need to configure the client, and this is the part that gets definitely a little bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is, in order to open up the console, you go to View, and then you're going to go to a terminal here. It's going to open it like this, and you can see there's two prompts here. One is going to be for PowerShell, one's for command prompt. I personally prefer the command prompt, and it took me a minute to figure this out, but every time you click on this one, it's actually going to open up another command prompt down here. So, you see some of my commands that I ran before, but you can close these out, or you can right-click down here and close. And so we need to now cd into our project. So if you type dir, which lists the directory, we type cd, and then space, and what we're going to type is 06 and hit tab, and it'll fill it out for us. We're now in the right directory for it to be able to do this. Now what we're going to type is npm init-y. What this is going to do is this will run through and initialize the program. So you can see it runs through, reads our config, which is from this webpack.config, and it adds so it gets this all configured. Now next, we need to make sure that we install all of the required npm packages. Now I'm going to copy and paste this because it's a lot to type in, and so this will also be in the comments as well as in a text file with tips. There's a tips.txt file that's in the repo. And so, this is what I'm pasting in. what this does is it uses npm and it tells it to install and then adds all the different packages that we need to install. So when you hit this, you can see that it's going to run through. You see the status bar. Now in my case, I'd actually already installed all of those, so those are already all installed. So, but yours will run through and install all of them. So that's so we'll be in good shape now. Then at that once we're ready for this. So now we're ready to. So I'm going to clean just to make sure that I get a good clean start, and then we're going to come in here and do a rebuild. This will now rebuild all of the different packages, including all of the node packages. So, and then we can start to go through some of the different code that we're going to work through. So now we can see that all built, and we don't have any errors. So we're looking like we're in good shape. So what we're going to go and do is break down through some of this code and talk a little bit about what each of these are. So the index file should look pretty straightforward, right? If you're using used to using any HTML, it's pretty straightforward. We've got a label for a message, we've got the text input field, and then we've got the send button. So this is pretty straightforward, not a lot of surprises here. The next one is the main.css, and this one's pretty straightforward, just styling some of our page out. But really where we're going to try to get into then now is we need to get into our TypeScript config. And so we want to make sure that we tell that the target that we're looking for is ES5, which configures the TypeScript compiler to produce ECMA script 5 compatible JavaScript. And so this is telling it compile down your TypeScript to be to which version of JavaScript. So if you're watching this in future years, you might want to compile this down to other ones. Now let's go ahead and dive into the actual TypeScript itself. Now you notice this file is index.ts. So instead of a JavaScript file, which is what it's actually going to produce, if we go and look at our produced file, it'll produce this JavaScript file. This is TypeScript, which a lot of people find easier to use. I personally haven't written a ton of TypeScript, mostly because I think it's good. I think it's fantastic, and a lot of people really like TypeScript. So we're going to import the SignalR library, also our main.css. These selectors. We're going to do the query selectors to get the message, the div, the message, and the button. We'll also connect to the hub, right, which we had shown before. So we're going to connect with the hub. And then once we get the message that comes back, so when we do the connection.on, which is where we receive that message from the SignalR controller, then we're going to go ahead and do some little HTML manipulation where we add the username and the message, and then we're going to append it into the div to keep adding to it. So now we can add a couple of event listeners. So when you key up, if you hit enter, it'll send. And we're also going to add a listener for the click so that when you click on the send, it will, and here's our send message. So this wires up both enter as well as the click method, the mouse click events, so that they're wired up to this send method. Now this does connection.send and sends the new message, which we were just looking at on the hub, right? So here's our new message. And this will do the send and send that value, and then clear out the other message box. So let's fire this up and give this a try. And we're going to be compiling here and fire up the browser here. Give it 1 second here to start up. All right, so now here's our cool chat application. So if we want to send a message, we're going to say hi. Now you notice that I can either hit enter and it sends it, or I can say hello and I can click this and it will send it. Now let's go ahead and open 2 of these because one chat tab isn't all that interesting or exciting. So let's see if I can get this snapped correctly. So this is a test. Hey, look at that. So you can see that it sent over here. What do you mean? And then this guy says, so you're, saying I have a chance. Let's see if you can leave a comment down below on what movie reference that is. So you're saying there's a chance, right? All right, and I think I got it wrong, but it's okay. So now let's talk a little bit and we can show what pieces are happening here. So now we can't put a debugger into our JavaScript code because it's compiled down to this actual JavaScript code here. So the code that's actually being run in the browser from the TypeScript is actually compiled down when we ran that compiler down to this JavaScript. Now you can see this JavaScript is on a single line and it's super ugly. We could go and prettify this JavaScript and if we wanted to, and there are some handy tools out there for doing pretty print. Let's try this. So if we take this and paste it in here, oh, I think I broke it. So after running it through our prettifier, you can see this is the code that all that TypeScript actually output this code. Now, a lot of this is actually compiled from the libraries as well, so it uses the libraries and builds in a lot of this. But this, you can see, is what comes from including those libraries and then this amount of TypeScript. So that's pretty impressive. But let's go ahead and put a breakpoint into our hub so we can see what we're expecting here. So let's throw our breakpoint here in the hub. And let's fire this guy again. So let's go back to our, let's see. Okay, so we can see that the username on here, in this case, is just going to be these longs, which we were just randomly generating. But you can also see that my message here is, the message that I had sent in here. And so this is the hub where it's actually then going to send this to all clients. So when this guy sends out, you can see that go back to our other one, you can see that he sent the message out to this other side. And so this allows both sides to send and receive the messages. So our breakpoint, our debuggers pause back here. And we can see that one here and that one here. So ultimately, you can see that this is an interesting little chat application. It's really easy to build these chat applications, and this really demonstrates the power of TypeScript, how a little bit of configuration, a little bit of code can go a long ways. And so we see that this TypeScript code, things like adding this event listener, things like the connection.on, these are things that then will generate a lot of different JavaScript to make it compliant across a lot of different browsers. And so make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we're going to keep bringing you great code samples like these and keep teaching how to help entrepreneurs to be able to run their business and be able to manage code and understand and learn what coding is. And so make sure that you pick up your clean routers as well as your clean phone so you keep your kids safe online. And we will catch you guys next time.